Thanks for joining us, Michael. Obviously, in terms of result, a good weekend, clean sheet. You go into the game on a high, really, against a team that's just two places above you on the same number of points. Certainly nicely tucked in behind there. A good position to be in at this time of the season, Michael.
It is, yeah. We're pleased with that. It was important for us to win Saturday, having lost in midweek, and that's the most important thing, is that you don't allow defeats to fester. We didn't do that. It wasn't a game that was easy on the eye, I think, at times. But we watched the game back. We felt we did what we needed to do in the game. We probably could have been a little bit better in terms of our attack and play at times, but we looked very solid defensively. Another clean sheet, and obviously we take that into the game tomorrow night.
It's all about that continuity, and certainly the defence is taking shape now, Michael, isn't it, really, with that certain performance where you're not conceding literally anything in the last few games.
Yeah, look, I think defensively we've been very good this season. I'm sure the exact number of clean sheets over the games that we've played, with the cup games as well. But we have got good confidence whether we play with a back three or a back four. And there's been consistency in a lot of the use of the players. For example, Morgan Fox can play comfortably at left centre back or play at left full back. So that flexibility in our squad has been good. We're dealing with obviously injuries in our back four as well, with the players that have been absent for us. So it's been a positive to come in. The clean sheet's a positive for obviously Angus Gunn coming in, and the team as a whole.
What shape the squad in then for the game tomorrow night, Michael, in terms of any more problems in terms of the injuries, what we already know about? No problems from the Saturday game?
We've no additional problems from Saturday. James Chester is still going to be absent. Nathan Collins is unlikely to be fit, and obviously the longer, Sam Clucas, Joe Allen, Ryan Shawcross still unavailable to us at this minute in time. So, as I say, we haven't added to that list of injuries, but it'll be good for us if those players can get back and challenge to be part of the squad as soon as possible.
How do you assess Watford then, Michael, in terms of obviously a team that came down, relegated, but about a respectable start, I would put it?
Yeah, they have. I think with any team that comes down, there's always potential change. They've sold some players, they've brought some players in. I think probably like any of the teams that come down are adapting to the Championship. It's not like they've been consistent in the Premier League for a number of years now, and they have threats. Troy Deeney has been absent for most of the start of the season, but the likes of Sarr up front has been very good for them. They've got good players in the core of their team. The likes of Cathcart, Cleverly. Good players in midfield, Kapui. So we expect a tough game. I think any of these, when you go away to any of the teams that have been relegated and just come down to the Premier League away from home, you expect a tough game. And as I say, that's what we expect tomorrow night.
They tend to play at a high energy. You've got to match that, but certainly not lose concentration and focus of what you're about, have you?
Yeah, look, it's very important in these types of games that you don't get concerned at times about not having too much of the ball. They have to be mindful of that. I think they've been fairly consistent with their shape. They've played, three at the back really since the start of the season. As I say, they have pace in the wide areas as well that we'll have to deal with, whether that's with a front two or with a front three, depending on how they match up. So we know where the threats are, and as I say, we've dealt with these types of this type of quality before, particularly in the cup games. You look at the quality that we've dealt with when we played against Villa, the quality that we've dealt with when we played against Wolves, and that's maybe the type of performance that we'll need again in the game tomorrow night.
Finally, from me, Michael, you must be relieved, delighted, whichever way you want to say it. The government's giving the green light for clubs at the high level, professional level, to continue in this pandemic.
Yeah, certainly we didn't want to be going back to a situation where we couldn't play. It's disappointing, obviously, that we haven't been able to progress things from where we're at the minute. I think I think we have to be mindful of the players as well, because they are being asked to play every 3 days. They're playing in empty stadiums, and that in itself is a challenge for players, and still operating with obviously COVID restrictions in terms of our travel as a team, in terms of how we prepare in the hotel away from home as well. So there's a lot for the players to deal with at the minute. But as I said, that we've been delighted with the response that we've had. Delighted that obviously we're going to be continuing playing, and we just obviously have to be mindful of that we continue to do everything by the guidelines and make sure that we're protecting everyone, obviously, in the environment of the club as well.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, George.
Thanks, George. Now, Ange.
Michael, since you've come into the club, Stoke City have become far more resilient, harder to beat, and actually scored more goals than I think it's Brentford, Blackburn and Reading. Most people are now looking at Stoke City as a team that could be around the playoffs or even better towards the end of the season. Do you look at these next two, albeit very difficult matches, as a way of you seeing how far your plan has progressed?
I think you can do, yeah. I think it's difficult when you get two back-to-back away games. It is difficult, and particularly in the midweek. So, but we will know where we're at. I think a little bit clearer after this. As I said, you would like to be going into some of these games with, the likes of a Sam Clucas or a Joe Allen available to you. But what I do think is that, if you'd have looked at us this time last year and felt as a team that we could have gone without those two players, for example, and we've coped with both of their losses, I think that's where we are as a squad, how much stronger we are as a squad. Combination of the players we brought in, a combination of the younger players as well, giving us that additional strength, and the players that were here. I do think that it'll give us a bit of a benchmark, but it won't be the overall riding factor in where we finish this season. The most important thing, I think, is as I say, is to get a good reaction to when you have a setback, and that was the most positive thing about the game on Saturday, is that we reacted well, and we've got ourselves back, and now we're trying to put together a little run again that hopefully we can gather points leading into the international break.
You've talked quite often about how difficult this season is, with a game midweek most weeks, and how tough this league is. Now that sports science plays such a big part in the backroom work of football clubs, does the sports science influence your thoughts on your team selection?
I wouldn't say it influences. There is input from sports science in relation to where players are physically and the physical output of the players. We have to be mindful of how what I suppose what physical or sports science and medical information gives you. It gives you a knowledge of how robust players are. Some players are more robust than others in terms of their ability to play, consistency. If you look at, for example, John Obi Mikel, John has got stronger with the more games he's played, as opposed to, possibly the players that play in the attacking positions. They maybe need to be given a little spells where they're rested for periods, or, we have to withdraw them at certain parts of the game, looking forward to the next game as well. But, it's something that we manage what we would call the load of the players very carefully. They do very little between the games, if I'm honest, which is difficult for the players who possibly don't play, because the training is basically very limited, because between the times you rest, recover and prep, you're pretty much getting one day's preparation leading into the next game. But it's a challenge which we all have to deal with. But it's certainly I think going forward, the workload of the players and how it's managed this season will be more crucial than probably any other season, given obviously the short nature of it.
You've talked about John Obi Mikel. A lot of people are comparing the fact that he's considerably older than Tyrese Campbell, but Tyrese Campbell's having to play with a different type of physical action than he would do down the middle, isn't he? Because he's probably doing more coming in from the wing. He's probably doing 4 more 50 to 80 metre sprints than if he was going to the middle, when he'd probably be doing 20 to 30 metre sprints. That doesn't help in terms of keeping him fresh, does it?
Well, no, both players are very different athletes as well. It's not necessarily a case of just looking at their age. Tyrese is a player that does a lot of high intensity running, as is Jacob Brown. Those are the players that are more susceptible to injury, particularly muscle injuries as well. So we have to protect Ty. We just don't want to flog him for the sake of, we know that, he's a young player with a lot of potential, as is Jacob, as he's shown when he's played as well. But we can't just pick the ages around that. It's what we expect of those players. The players in the wide area and the attacking players are pretty much the ones that will do the most high intensity running in the game. And it's that kind of running which obviously makes them more susceptible to injury as well. The overall workload in terms of distance, James McLean will always pretty much have a really high output, as well Jordan Thompson, Sam Clucas when they play Joe Allen. So, yeah, look, all of that comes into making sure that you try and get the right team on the pitch. And I think that we have to, as I say, with young players in particular, we have to accept that there'll be inconsistencies in their form. And more often than not, that's related to their physical condition going into the game.
Lastly for me, how far away is Sam Clucas, do you reckon?
We don't expect to see Sam before the international break. I think the only one possibly who could come into the equation would be Nathan Collins. The other players, we go into a situation where we've got obviously to Saturday and then a 2-week break before we play again. So hopefully that will give a period of recovery and rest, not only for the players that have played, but for the injured players to, as I say, hopefully be closer to return to action.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ange. Now, Dave, please.
Hi. Michael, you mentioned Sam Clucas. I wonder if you could remind us about his situation, because he played a full 90 minutes in the Bruising game against Luton, and then a few days later didn't appear for Brentford. What was the nature of his injury?
He had a calf injury that he picked up, tightness in his calf against Luton, and then on his other, he actually had a little bit of cellulitis infection, which took a few days to clear up as well, which it was painful rather than, a major concern, but it's the calf injury and the tightness in his calf that he picked up against Luton. That has been the biggest factor in him obviously not being available to us.